On January 5, 2026, an application landed at the Ministry of Corporate Affairs with a single permanent request: strike off the name HMT Watches Limited from the records. With that piece of paperwork, India's oldest and most iconic watch manufacturer was legally erased from existence. It leaves behind a massive financial crater, thousands of crores in debt, and an obvious question: how does a government-backed giant that once held an absolute monopoly completely collapse? The easiest answer is to blame private competitors, but the evidence shows HMT was suffocated from the inside, shut down by the very system that built it. To understand the collapse, we have to look at the peak. In 1961, HMT partnered with Japan's Citizen Watch Company to establish India's first indigenous wristwatch manufacturing unit. Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru formally launched the brand, presenting the robust, hand-wound Janata model as a triumph of national self-reliance. Throughout the 70s and 80s, their manufacturing dominance was absolute. They achieved near total vertical integration, producing almost every tiny gear in-house across massive assembly lines. This pie chart illustrates the sheer scale of their reach, showing HMT controlling a staggering 90% of the entire Indian watch market. They sold over 100 million watches. For decades, strapping an HMT Kohinoor or Pilot to your wrist was the ultimate middle-class dream. They earned the title Timekeepers to the nation, and that deep emotional connection makes their eventual downfall all the more severe. The first cracks in their dominance appeared late in the 20th century, driven by the global quartz revolution. Watchmakers worldwide rapidly pivoted to battery-powered digital and quartz technology, which offered highly accurate timekeeping at a fraction of the cost. HMT saw this shift happening and chose to ignore it. They were comfortable churning out the same hand-wound mechanical watches that had always sold. That complacency caught up with them in 1987, when aggressive private domestic competitors, led by Titan, entered the space. These new brands immediately embraced quartz movements and backed them with modern, flashy marketing campaigns designed to capture consumer attention. As India modernized, tastes evolved rapidly. Next to these sleek, battery-powered alternatives, HMT's catalog suddenly looked incredibly dated. Relying on past designs while refusing to adapt to new technology was the first deep cut to their monopoly. But a missed technological trend can be corrected. The disease that actually killed HMT was structural. As a public sector undertaking, HMT was bound by government administration. Basic business decisions required navigating a labyrinth of bureaucratic approvals. While private rivals could prototype a new design and launch a campaign in weeks, HMT was bogged down in slow, committee-based debates. This line graph traces the financial cost of that paralysis. Unable to react to the market, their sales collapsed, and revenues bled deep into negative territory. Over the decades, these mounting losses accumulated into an insurmountable financial black hole, totaling 2,500 crore rupees in debt. Private competitors certainly took their market share, but the crushing weight of their own administrative red tape sealed the doors. The inevitable conclusion finally arrived in January 2016, when the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs voted to pull the plug. They ordered the immediate closure of 3 subsidiaries, permanently shutting down the historic manufacturing plants in Ranibagh and Tumkur. Thousands of loyal employees, many of whom came from families that had worked the assembly lines for generations, abruptly lost their livelihoods. The final severance packages offered to these workers were calculated using severely outdated 2007 notional pay scales, rather than their 2016 value. The very institutional structure that built the pride of the nation left its workforce behind. Yet, despite the official corporate autopsy and the closed factories, the brand itself refuses to fade away. Today, there is a massive, thriving underground market for vintage HMTs, supported by dedicated collector groups and the HMT Heritage Center in Bangalore. Because they produced over 100 million pieces, these mechanical survivors are still out there, ticking steadily inside family watch boxes and on dusty market stalls. HMT will always be the timekeeper to the nation, but their empty factories stand as a harsh reminder. In business, time waits for no one.